Okay. Thank you.
Good day, Mr. Tirad. Welcome to our show. Let's get into the first question is, of course, on whether the term Islamic finance should be dropped or not. Would consumers accept the rebranding of an Islamic bank as another type of ethical bank without as strong of an Islamic label? What is your take on this?
I think that's a very good question, and I think the timing of the question is very appropriate. As you know, Islamic banking is, it started more than 40 years ago, and it started at that time in response to a pent-up demand by many Muslim communities who wanted to engage in banking but were worried about the Sharia compliance, the religious limitations of engaging in activities that cause them to get paid interest or pay interest. And in Islam, these things are forbidden. So Islamic banks were created out of a public need in the Muslim communities, and the use of the term Islamic in banking was required at that time to tell them that here we are available to satisfy your needs and demands. So at the beginning, that term was actually required to say, right now, Sharia compliant banking is available. So the Muslim communities actually recognized the presence, and they actually started to do business. And if you see the trend of the growth of Islamic banks in the last 40 years, the growth has been phenomenal. Right now, the need to use the term Islamic is not as needed as was the case when the industry was launched, because the Muslim communities know that Islamic banks exist. So why do we continue using this term? I think right now in the industry there are other things that are evolving, and that is, we have to be careful as industry leaders not to be accused today of using the term Islamic to leverage that as an emotional selling strategy. And this is the risk we run right now. That is the real downside, that we are using emotions to sell our business model to the Muslims around the world. We have to be very careful, we have to be very conscientious and much more responsible in the way we present ourselves out there. I think if you ask me personally, the commercial need to use the term Islamic from an awareness, public being aware that we exist, is no longer there, because we now know that the public knows we exist. So why do we continue using it, particularly since we do run the risk of being accused that we are leveraging emotions to sell this business? I think right now there's a debate, a quiet debate that's taking place. Are we really at the risk of using emotions? Should we maintain this label or should we not do it? Nobody wants to use religion and emotions for the purposes of commerce. This is not what we want at all. So we have to think about this carefully, and we have to see how the industry evolves in that direction. If we use the term ethical, I think the Muslim communities know that Islamic banking is all about ethics. It's not about mathematics. They all know that these are ethical issues at play, and that's why they wanted Islamic banking to start with. The point here is, does this remain a community bank only for the Muslim communities, or does this become a bank for everybody? And I think the trend is it's a bank for everyone. I would like to call it banking as it should be for everyone. And to me, the underlying word there is ethics. Religion has never been restricted to a community. It's an open platform for everyone, and so is Islamic banking.
Right, now let's zoom in on that answer. Does the Islamic label hinder, or perhaps will hinder, the marketing of Islamic banking services to non-Muslims?
If we look at ethical banking, if we use ethical banking, I think it will have a broader audience, because ethics have become a universal issue. Particularly, we know what happened at the end of 2008 with the financial crisis that began somewhere in the States but spread all over the world. And I think there's a convergence between regulators and the public in general. Both are saying we want to bring basics back into banking, and when you look at the essence of basics, you discover that the biggest word there is ethics. of what we do. It's not a strange nor a surprising demand. So I think the use of the term ethical has a broader appeal. It has a more meaningful message to the world everywhere, to all the communities. So I think the term ethical will become louder and more obviously used by the industry, by the Islamic banking industry. And I believe that over time, evolution will decide whether the term Islamic gets replaced by the term ethical.
So would the rebranding of Islamic finance to ethical finance promote the growth of this industry in the new markets?
I believe that Islamic banks have proved themselves to be, let me rephrase this. When Islamic banks were first launched, many people were speculating and betting that this is going to be a short-lived experiment. It's like a fad. It will fizzle out in maybe 5 years, 10 years. To the surprise of many, it is not a fad, it is not a fashion, it is now an industry, a very thriving industry, a safer industry, a more stable industry, a more reliable industry in the banking world. So we're no longer in the experimental stage. Right now, we are proving ourselves to be mature, to be growing, and to be predictable and reliable. I believe that if we focus on the universality of the value proposition in Islamic banking, which is in its essence ethics, this industry will grow much faster and more broad in its reach. And I think that that is an unavoidable destiny for the industry. But we have to have the courage to face the forces that are driving this industry forward. And I believe the single most important force is the ethical value proposition that Islamic banks offer.
And for this, Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank is also launching the Ethical Award in conjunction with Thomson Reuters Global Islamic Economic Summit 2013. It's happening in November.
That's right.
Can you expand further on why did you decide to launch this award?
We want to move the needle a bit. We want to move the needle. We have a view, and the view we have is a convergence is taking place in the world. As I said earlier, regulators and the public are demanding that banks go back to basics. And in the heart of basics, you find ethics. And we are trying to build a bridge in a very visible way between what the value proposition is that Islamic banks offer and what ethics are all about. And you will find that the common denominator between them is 80%. 20% are minor differences because conventional banks can also be ethical banks. And Islamic banks are all pure ethics. And the similarities become 80%, and the differences, roughly 20%, are legitimate and differences that will be there forever. But we want to emphasize the common denominator, ethics. That is the true value proposition of Islamic banks. We do not teach religion. We do not promote religion. This is not a religious institution. This is a commercial bank that serves the communities around the world. And we have to realize that, and we have to promote that.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's it? Finished? No more pictures? Or this is going on? Still going on?
Alright, can you do like, can you just like have conversation with her? Or maybe like